Hey guys, and welcome back. My name is James, and in this video we're going to be making a very simple little NATO watch strap, and I'll explain to you in a second what that actually is. But as you can see, this old watch of mine really needs to have its strap put in the bin and replaced with something new after using the old one as a template. And the cool thing about this is that you guys can come along with me while I make it. The NATO watch strap is actually a very simple design. It's one piece, in this case leather. It can be of different materials, but in this case it's just one piece, and it sort of wraps around itself. And I'll show you that when I start deconstructing this. And then the actual watch comes in and is strapped around into the piece of leather in this case, or the fabric or the material. But the reason it's so interesting, not just because it's one piece, it's also because of two other major factors. Number one is that you can very quickly and very simply change the watch that you have on a strap, or more importantly, change the strap that you have on a specific watch. For example, you can easily find quite a few different colored NATO watch straps and change them around depending on what you're wearing that day. The second one, which I find very interesting, is that if ever you have a failure, which can happen on these little metal pieces here, it can happen that one of these branches breaks off and then your whole watch would fall off your wrist if you're wearing a classic strap. But in this case, because it's looping through both of these, then the watch would actually stay tied onto the strap. So these are two key reasons why this type of watch strap might be interesting. Now in my case, this one has been used and abused over the years, and maybe I haven't been taking enough care of it as it's gone very dry and brittle. I haven't used this in quite some time, which is why it might be so brittle and dry. But it's definitely time for me to replace this watch strap. Now, I didn't make this strap, it came with the watch, and I was never really too satisfied with the quality of the leather. It looks like some sort of pull-up leather. It was absolutely fine for the purpose, but I wanted to have some nice vegetable tanned leather that I knew was going to last me for a very, very long time indeed. So today we'll be deconstructing this NATO watch band, getting rid of the old one, but keeping the hardware to be able to make a new one with the same specs as the old one. And yeah, it should be a relatively simple build today. Hopefully you enjoy, hopefully you have a bit of fun and learn something along the way. Let's go. Obviously the first step is going to be taking off the old watch from the strap, and this will give you a nice view of how it actually works. It's a very simple watch, but yeah, I do like it. And you can see where the watch was and where the different marks are. This is the most troublesome area where it's really dry and actually cracking and failing, as you can see. Just there, you can see the failure there. There you go, you have all the pieces here, starting with the end buckle to the actual strap itself. So I'm just going to roughly measure out these pieces to have an idea. So that's about 15 centimeters, and that's about 25. Let's make it 25. 15 plus 25 equals 40. So I need a 40 centimeter long strap. And this particular strap was 2.2 millimeters wide. So I'll make it to the same dimensions. I'm just going to check this piece here. The internal diameter is of course of 2.2, so we are all set to go. Let's cut a strap of vegetable tanned leather. There we go. We now have one strap of 2.2 millimeters thick or wide vegetable tanned leather. This is 1.4 millimeters thick, which might be a bit softer than I'd like, to be honest, but it will do just fine for this purpose. The first thing we'll do is skive down the end for that loop buckle at the end of the strap. Now I don't need it to be perfectly thin, I just want it to be close enough. There we go, that'll do. So we'll be folding over the end roughly about there. I'm just going to make my initial fold here using pressure for my fingers. And I want to scribe a line, or a point just there, to make sure that I know where my glue is going to go. I'm using just a smidgen of neoprene glue here. The idea is that the neoprene glue will just hold it down while I do my stitch up, and that once it's done, it shouldn't ever move again. Using neoprene glue, make sure you wait 5 to 10 minutes until it is tacky, if not dry, to the touch before pressing it down, and that will give you the best bond possible. And this way it shouldn't ever move again. Now in itself, neoprene glue is extremely tough, and yeah, it should work very, very well just of that, but we are still going to stitch just to make sure that it doesn't go anywhere. And just like that, the first buckle is in. Now before we do anything else, this is the time to go ahead and bevel and burnish your edges. I'm going to do it very quickly, just because I'm not too worried about having perfect edges on this piece. But go ahead and take as long as you want, or go as fast as you want for beveling. In my case, I'm going to have a very shallow bevel here on the edge, as it isn't very thick leather. Oh, by the way, when you're doing something like this on very thin leather, always bevel on the inside of the leather first and not on the outside, simply because it's much easier to bevel these edges here while there is still an edge on this side to support the pushing motion that you're doing. To burnish my edges, I like to use Tokonol. I've used gum tragos in the past, but since finding Tokonol, I really haven't found anything as good as this stuff for burnishing edges, and I do seriously recommend it for anyone in the leather industry who hasn't tested it yet. Now, you don't really need to burnish your edge for this kind of project. It's something that's not going to be the most sophisticated wear. You won't feel it if it's burnished, but it does give you a much more finished look if you do go ahead and burnish it. And I do believe it helps a lot with the just general aspect of it, but also helps keep those edges protected, as it will seal in those edges and protect the little fibers from fraying, or avoid them from fraying too much. And in general, it helps with the longevity of your project. So if you can, I would recommend it, although obviously it's not necessary for this project. On the strap I had before, the actual buckle comes in at about 13 centimeters in here. So this is where the fold is going to be. And it may seem a bit weird that the buckle is right in the middle of the band at this stage, but don't worry, it'll become obvious to you as we go forwards. Gives you a rough idea of what it might look like at the end. The way I plan on doing this is basically following the old pattern by having one metal buckle here and one metal buckle here. To make my life easier, I am going to glue down just about to here, really, all this area here. Now that's not necessary, really, you could do it without gluing, but I'm going to do that just to make my life easier and to hold things down before and while I'm sewing. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. That may not be necessary or even needed for you guys, but Yeah, bear in mind that this is how I'm doing it. So the first thing I want to do is mark out up to where my glue will go. Just giving it a quick little mark on the inside, not forgetting on the other side as well. And that gives me, theoretically, a good indication as to where my glue is supposed to go. So as you can see, it's to go all along here. Now I don't actually necessarily even want that much glue. It really is here just to hold things down more temporarily than anything else. I mean, it's not a bad thing that I've got stuff being held down long term, but at this point the stitching will be holding things down much better than the small amount of glue will be. And I don't necessarily need that much glue here, so I'm just going to err on the side of caution and only add in just a small amount to hold things down. Again, using the old strap as a reference, I'm going to try and guesstimate where these different things are going to go. This is nothing scientific, it's just part checking on the old version and part seeing what feels and looks good to me, and that feels and looks good to me right now, so I'm going to go ahead and press things down. For stitching, I'm using my favorite Crimson Hide stitching irons in the 3.25mm spacing, and it is the French tip versus the Japanese tip, so it's slants versus diamonds. Yeah, nothing much to say about that. I just want to check my spacing here, mark out roughly where I want my stitch line to be. There we go, I'll come back to that in a second. Second stitch line goes roughly there. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Let me see. That looks straight enough to me. As I said, this is a clearly very scientific method and obviously the exact way everyone should proceed when doing this kind of watch strap, or not, of course. Please feel free to add in any variations of your own that could improve this process in your own watch strap making. Nice thing about these irons is that they're actually so sharp already that I don't need to punch. I can just do that with my fingers and that will be more than sufficient in this 1.2mm leather. Don't forget this is doubled down, so you actually get 2.4mm at the thickest edges, but as you can see, these irons are just going straight through like a nice little treat, which is really nice because it's actually quite late by the time I'm filming this, so I don't really want to be making that much noise because I do have neighbours upstairs and they don't like it when I bash on things late at night. Wonder why. Don't forget to add in a line of stitches on this buckle here at the back. I am leaving it till the last, and at this point I can feel quite confident just to do it freehand like this, because this is not going to be seen, so I'm not too worried about the result. As you can see, that worked a treat. Let's go ahead and stitch. At this point the strap is pretty much done. As you can see, it's had a quick stitch. Yeah, sure, it's not the cleanest, but it definitely does work well. The leather has stayed nice and stuck together, which is why it's now time for me to unpeel it before it sticks too much. There we go. Yeah, sure, not the cleanest, I did warn you. But again, you don't need to have lots of glue to hold it down. It's just, I prefer it. In the meantime, it does help, and it's not a big deal anyway. As you can see, this is roughly how it's going to look when it's ready, and it pretty much is ready. The only thing we're needing now is holes here, so I can actually tie it to my wrist. To make the holes, I'm going to be using this specialized tool, which is nothing fancy, but it makes some nice oblong holes. I don't know if you can see that properly, but you'll be able to see it once it's cut. And yeah, it's a little nifty little tool that is specially made for watch straps, although I've used it for many other types of straps. So I'm just going to go ahead and punch the holes out off camera and show you the result. As you can see, this little project is already over. It was quite an easy sort of fun project, but yeah, I really enjoy these kind of things. And hopefully this is something that's going to last me for years to come. But before I actually start using it, the final thing I want to do is add in a protective coat of wax, which will help, yeah, hopefully bring out a lot of nice colouring to the leather, as well as help keep it safe and protected and supple and nourished for years to come. Okay, it's time to assemble it, And to do that, it's very simple. Just slide this through. There we go. And slide this one into here. And you're all set. Your new NATO watch strap is now ready for use. This is the final result, and I'm really pleased with the way it turned out. Now, if I could choose, I might have gone with a slightly thicker leather because this one is quite supple, but at the same time, it adds a lot to the comfort on my wrist of having something like this. I don't have very large wrists, I have to admit, and this does feel very nice compared to the previous one, which was fine, but this does feel much nicer. Overall, I'm very pleased with the way this turned out, and I'm very excited to see how it's going to age in the future. It's a very simple, fun little project, and I will be making more of these straps for other watches that I own as well. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. That really does help me out a lot. And if you have tips and tricks you want to share with me and the community at large, do know that these are always very useful and helpful to many, many people. So please consider dropping me a like and of course a comment down below underneath this video. That would be greatly appreciated. As always, guys, thanks a ton for joining me today. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed, I hope you've learned something, and hopefully I'll see you very soon for some more leathercraft.